Hey guys, welcome to the Aranzamendi podcast, to this new episode. Today, we got a story that should send chills down the spine of every single official who thinks they can simply ignore a court order. Right now, as you can see here, this is, it's contempt time, criminal contempt time, baby. No more games. I'm talking about Judge Boasberg's new initiative and new order. So we're going to be talking about that today. Abrego Garcia's case a little bit and what's going on with DHS. And this is what's going on, guys. So this is a significant development, a great update that you should know. It's escalating right now between the judiciary and the executive branch, specifically U.S. District Judge James Boasberg and the Trump administration over a matter of life, liberty, and pretty much the rule of law. So this isn't just, bureaucratic drama. This is about accountability. It's a situation about, the law, the rule of law. And finally, it's moving into a critical new phase that is extremely, extremely bad news for the Trump administration at this point. And this is what's going on. So you guys have to remember that DHS and Kristi Noem and the DOJ, they've been challenging Judge Boasberg, the chief judge of the U.S. District Court in D.C. And he has definitely revived his criminal contempt investigation. He opened this probably like 3 or 4 months ago, that he said that he was opening a criminal contempt investigation. And now he has definitely revived it. And this investigation is moving forward very quickly. And he's not messing around. He just ordered the administration to submit sworn declarations. This is the hard part for them, and this one is going to sting. He finally is trying to put them on record, right? He's ordering them, Kristi Noem, the administration, DHS, all the people who are somehow involved in this chain of command or with the whole Abrego Garcia case and sending the planes to El Salvador. He's asking them to submit sworn declarations, affidavits, official statements made under oath. And these people, they love going on social media. They love going on media tours and saying whatever they want to say. But it's a completely different situation when they tell you that you have to put this in writing under oath, right? From the officials, all the officials involved in the potentially contemptuous actions, right? And what does this mean? It means that the temperature is just, escalating right now. It went from high to, scorching, right? Moving from general accusations to demanding statements under oath is a major escalation. It forces individuals to put their names and their integrity on the line, knowing that any falsehood is a crime of perjury at this point. So Boasberg wants to identify the specific decision makers who, as he is putting it, directed the potentially, I'm quoting, right, potentially contemptuous actions, and decide then at that point who should be referred for potential criminal contempt prosecution. And, guys, this is an incredibly rare, almost unprecedented step. And it speaks volumes about the gravity of this situation, of the administration's alleged disregard for the court's authority. And to understand really well what's going on with this update, we have to go back a little bit to, around March 2025. The Trump administration made the shocking move, as you can see in many of these images. They made the shocking move of invoking the Alien Enemies Acts of 1798. If you actually remember, this was the law that the Trump administration invoked, that supposedly Trump invoked, that Trump signed himself, right? And Donald Trump was actually questioned. He was questioned by the media because when the planes took off, the judge was really mad. And he said, I need to know who signed this, Alien Enemies Invocation Act. I need to know who signed this order based on that law. And everybody was saying that, of course, it was signed by the administration, but no specifics. So that's why the judge was pressing them. I need to know who signed it and when, what specific time. He wanted, obviously, to check, the flight logs and everything and see if things were adding up or matching, right? So the press confronted Donald Trump the next day after the judge said that he wanted to know who signed the invocation for this Alien Enemies Act and when, exactly at what time. So I remember reporters asking Donald Trump, hey, Mr. President, the judge is asking who signed the declaration of the, this invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. Can you tell us? And Donald Trump was like, he was leaving the White House, I believe, and about to, I don't know, I think he was about to hop on the, helicopter. And he told the press, he said, well, I don't know. You're going to have to ask somebody else because I don't know anything about that. He said, I don't know who signed that or when, so I can't tell you. And I was like, oh, shit. And they're like, but Mr. President, the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act has your signature. Just one little problem. It has your signature. But Donald Trump told the press, the whole, crew of, press that was outside of the White House, he told them he knew nothing about the Alien Enemies Act invocation, who signed it, or when. And that was literally like 1 or 2 days before. They're asking him, the next day or 2 days later because the judge was questioning why the freaking planes took off. And Donald Trump didn't know. So I don't know. I guess that one is an interesting thing that maybe Pam Bondi should look into. Maybe open an investigation. Maybe Congress, Republicans in Congress open an investigation into the AutoPen, Donald Trump's AutoPen signing an invocation of the Alien Enemies Act when he told the press, literally verbatim, I don't know who did that. So you're going to have to ask somebody else because I wasn't there. I didn't do it, so I couldn't tell you who signed it or at what time. I should have brought that video to share it with you guys. Go and find it. Find it. Search. Donald Trump self-reported he didn't know who signed the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act. I promise one of the follow-up videos, I'll bring it. I'll bring it for you. I know I have it because I've used it on my Spanish podcast. By the way, I host a Spanish podcast called Aranzamendi Podcast Español. So if you have any Spanish-speaking, friends, coworkers, family members, please send them to my channel. I have really, really good content, aside from the fact that I'm helping Brian Tyler Cohen too. So if you happen to like Spanish content, you can also visit, aside from my channel, Aranzamendi Podcast Español, you can visit Brian Tyler Cohen Español. I have been working with Brian for the past around 3 years, helping him to translate and dub and do, really good production to put all his content, or at least most of his content from the English channel, make it accessible in Spanish for our Spanish, speaking community, Hispanic. So if you can help us with that, we would definitely appreciate it. But anyway, going back to what I'm saying here is that Donald Trump didn't even know. He was like completely lost. Or he was just pretending that he didn't know, or maybe, I don't know, he's just senile, he's just losing it, right? He's losing his mind and he didn't even know. That same day, after Donald Trump made those completely damning statements, the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, and, the White House press team, they immediately put out some statements saying like, oh, no, Donald Trump was, he just got confused. He actually signed this. He signed it himself. He just forgot. Of course he forgot, right? But now let's investigate Joe Biden because, Joe Biden didn't even know what was going on, who was signing, who was using the AutoPen. Donald Trump literally signed, one of the most controversial laws from 200 years back to actually make one of the most controversial moves to deport people without due process and even disobeying a court, direct order to not let these planes take off. And he forgot. Yeah, that was such a casual, unimportant thing that he just forgot that he signed it personally 24 hours, earlier, or maybe 36, 48 hours before. That doesn't make any sense at all. But anyway, that was going around around that time. So they made the shocking move to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, a seldom used, over 200-year-old wartime law to summarily deport hundreds of Venezuelan migrants. The administration claimed these migrants were members of the gang Tren de Aragua. You may remember that, MS-13, or even Tren de Aragua mostly. a designation that civil rights groups and attorneys immediately challenged, saying it was a pretext to deny pretty much due process. Like, you just want to deny them basic due process as the Constitution guarantees. Advocates swiftly sued right away. And on March 15, Judge Boasberg held an emergency hearing recognizing the severity of due process, these violations to due process. He issued a TRO, what's called or known as a temporary restraining order, to halt the deportations, to stop them. And crucially, he gave an oral order, which became like an issue. Oh, it was just an oral order from the bench that the planes carrying these migrants, which were already in the air and headed for El Salvador, needed to be turned around and returned to the U.S. What happened next is why we are here today. Despite the judge's clear and on the record verbal, it is on the record, verbal order, which was immediately communicated to the government's lawyers, the planes continue their journey to El Salvador. Once there, migrants were deplaned and transferred into Salvadoran custody, ending up in a notorious prison that you guys may know is called CICOT. A lot of people say it's one of the worst in terms of human rights violations and so on. But Judge Boasberg later wrote that the administration's actions demonstrate a willful disregard for its order, concluding there was probable cause to find government in criminal contempt. And let's not forget the horrifying cherry on top when it comes to this case too. Reports indicate that a then DOJ official, I don't know if you remember this name, but this guy, he's close to Trump and he has been all over the place. They wanted to name him even to be like a appellate court judge or something, and he didn't make it. He couldn't pass the confirmation process, and I believe that now he's with the DOJ doing he may be with Ed Martin was the one who they moved to the DOJ. But anyway, I think they made this guy a judge, Emil Bove. And anyway, so he was then a DOJ official, Emil Bove, and allegedly told lawyers, this Trump official, DOJ top official, Emil Bove, allegedly told lawyers preparing for the hearing with Judge Boasberg to be ready to tell the court, and I quote, "fuck you." He was, this is what sworn testimony claims, that this guy, Emil Bove, said, we know what the courts are going to say. We know what they're going to try to do. We don't give a shit, so just be ready to tell the courts, fuck you, right? Of course, he denied it later. But that's the mindset. That's the mindset that we're dealing with, that Judge Boasberg is dealing with here. The administration has tried to argue that the verbal order wasn't binding, that the planes were outside U.S. airspace, on that their subsequent written order was somehow unclear. They have been trying to stonewall, obfuscate, and claim that state secrets protect them to avoid revealing the names of the people who gave the order to, to defy the court. But Judge Boasberg, he's having none of it. He's not playing around. He's having none of it right now. Excuse me just a second. And here's why this latest move that we're talking about today, this demand for sworn declarations, affidavits, it's so significant and so troubling for the Trump administration. First, the declarations will force the administration to drop the bureaucratic shield and identify the exact individuals they've been protecting who made the decision. They can no longer hide behind the faceless government and use that as an excuse. We're talking about officials, potentially high-level officials, facing the prospect of being named and referred for prosecution. Boy, man. The sad part here, being realistic, as much as I enjoy this part of the news that, they're facing some accountability, sad story and true story here is that if there is any prosecution, referral at the end of this, that would land on Pam Bondi's desk. And you know exactly what that means, right? Any prosecution referral for any of Trump's officials, DHS officials, DOJ officials, that's going to land on Pam Bondi's desk because the courts can't enforce the laws. They can interpret the law, they can interpret the Constitution, and they can recommend, they can refer, they can make for prosecution, but that will always land on Pam Bondi's desk. Do you think Pam Bondi is going to follow through if there's any prosecution referral for any of her officials, high officials, or even Kristi Noem's when they've been attacking this judge, saying that he's a partisan hack? Second, a sworn affidavit carries the threat of perjury, which is a serious felony. It's one thing to stonewall and, play games, and this is all fun and games when it's on social media and Fox News and, just claiming whatever you want to claim. But it's another to sign a document under oath that could later be proven false, which will happen. This is a problem with lying. I was saying this on my previous episode yesterday that I shared with you guys. I was telling you that this is a problem when you lie. When you lie, you have to keep up with lies, and it becomes a major problem. It starts like a little snowball, but it'll grow into this whole avalanche. And you're not going to be able to keep up with the lies. Somebody is going to crumble. Somebody's going to, give up. Somebody's going to turn on you. Somebody's going to mess up and forget the lines. And it's going to fall apart. That's what happens whenever you're lying. So this ups the personal risk dramatically for anyone involved in this whole chain of command and this whole, strategy that they were, trying to implement. Stonewalling and playing games with the court. The judges have been, not only in this case, many other cases, related cases, and across the board, all the cases, judges are really fed up with the Trump administration abusing what is called, what they call, judges call, we have Marty Graves saying, what the hell are they waiting for to hold that puppy murderer accountable? I don't know. I'm wondering the same thing. Here's the comment. Let me just kind of increase this here for a second so you can see one of the comments. And thank you for sharing your comment here right now. What the hell are they waiting for to hold that puppy murderer accountable? I wish I could tell you, right? But anyway, this is, it's upping. It ups the personal risk dramatically for anyone involved because it's right now they're facing real accountability, right? And then number three or third, the rule of law is at stake here. As 3 DC Circuit judges recently wrote, and I agree wholeheartedly with this, obedience to court orders is vital to the ability of the judiciary to fulfill its constitutionally appointed role. And one thing we've seen from this administration, the Trump administration, is that since they started getting this whole avalanche of, adverse rulings, they immediately started pointing fingers and saying, no, these are partisan judges, these are radical judges, they're pushing some, a progressive, radical, far-right, communist agenda, and yada, yada, yada. But just one problem, the situation is that they have been, pretty much stopped by a bunch of Republican judges. George Bush, appointed judges, even judges that Donald Trump appointed himself, have been ruling against this administration. Right now, of the 3, I don't know if you remember if you saw it or not, but if you're not aware of it, 3 of Donald Trump's U.S. attorneys that have been illegally appointed have been removed from, their position. Lindsey Halligan, Bill Essayli from California, California, and then Lindsey Halligan was from the Eastern District of Virginia, and now we have Alina Habba. She's the latest one who was just removed from this U.S. attorney position in New Jersey because they had been trying to game the system by switching her name, her title, and then saying like, oh, she has a new title, so now we can name her again. So another 120 days. There's like a limit. If you name a U.S. attorney, there's a limit of 120 days. So after that 120 days, if you don't get the Senate to confirm Lindsay Halligan or Bill Asaley or Alina Habba, they're gone. You can have them there because, the president gets one chance to appoint one U.S. attorney, one prosecutor to the vacant role to fulfill it for 120 days. That's it. After that, now the district court gets the authority transferred from the executive to the district court, and now the district court can either extend the same person who was there or not extend it or just leave it vacant or even choose a completely different person. It's up to the district court from that point on. And these people have been trying to game the system. Donald Trump has been trying to name one. If that one doesn't work, name a second, which was the case with Lindsay Halligan. Lindsay Halligan was replacing the Republican that he named first for the Eastern District of Virginia. What's his name? Eric Siebert. Eric Siebert is a career Republican from the Eastern District of Virginia. He had been working there for a while. They named him to be the U.S. attorney. And then this guy, career Republican, started looking into James Comey and Letitia James and said, hey, you know what, Pam Bondi? You know what, Donald Trump? We don't have proof. We don't have evidence enough to, prosecute these people. This is not worth pursuing so I'm declining. Donald Trump got mad, told him he had to quit, or if not, Donald Trump was going to fire him. The guy went on the media and said that he quit. Donald Trump says that he fired him. I don't give a shit. The guy was out. But now it was up to the district court because this guy, Eric Siebert, was already beyond the 120 days in that position of U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And the district court had already extended this guy, Eric Siebert. But Donald Trump fired him because he didn't want to do Trump's bidding, Trump's dirty, work. And now he wanted to bring his personal lawyer, Lindsay Halligan, who had zero background in criminal cases, same as Alina Habba, zero background in criminal cases. In Lindsay Halligan's case, she was a insurance attorney, and she's also like an ex-beauty queen from Arizona. And they named her, and it showed. It showed that she didn't know jack shit about what was required, and she fumbled. She dropped the ball so badly in so many different ways. It's not even worth mentioning. But anyway, that's how they were dealing with this whole situation right now. And the thing is that Donald Trump has been trying to just mock, the whole separation of government, the branches, right? When it comes to the courts. He thinks he's above the courts because somehow they're always arguing, well, Donald Trump, he got a mandate of 77 million votes. Who cares? We have a constitution that says that it's up to the courts to interpret the law, not to the executive. The executive can't try to enforce the law and also interpret the law. You know how this goes. Congress creates the laws. The executives make sure to enforce the laws, and courts interpret the law and interpret the Constitution. This is how it goes. This is just, government, like 101, civics 101. And these people want to just play dumb and pretend that the courts have no authority and that somehow a president with 77 million votes mandate is above all these courts. If that was the case, Joe Biden got 81 million votes. He had a great mandate, but when Biden decided to forgive student loans, these people went all the way up to the Supreme Court. They stopped them at a lower court and then at an appeals court and then finally at the Supreme Court. They made it all the way up. Texas, Ken Paxton, the attorney general from Texas, this guy sued the Biden administration over 100 times. In 4 years, over 100 times, Ken Paxton from Texas alone sued the Biden administration. So when Biden was in charge, somehow they loved the courts. They loved the lower courts. They loved the appeals courts. And they loved doing whatever the courts do, which is, injunctions, temporary, like stays, whatever, all these things to, just enforce the laws to help them, obviously, protect the rights of the people, their constituents and whatever. But now that the roles are flipped, that the courts are actually going against them, now they don't like it. Now they're firing judges. They're trying to even close whole districts. Mike Johnson said that he was They had the power, and they were looking into even closing full districts. He's like, oh, we have the power to purse. We have the money. So if they take the funding away from certain areas or districts that have many judges that are not favorable to the administration, then yeah, we can control the courts that way. And I remember even Judge Roberts, the leading judge of the Supreme Court, he even came out with a statement saying, hey, stop this nonsense of attacking lower court judges just because you don't like the ruling. That's not the way. It's not saying that you're going to impeach them. It's not saying that you're going to fire them. To impeach a judge, it's traditionally been that you need, maybe a case of DUI, maybe a case of, it has to be some criminal action to impeach a judge, because these are normally lifetime appointments. And unless they have an actual, criminal violation, nobody gets impeached just for ruling. This is what they do. You may not like the ruling. You may not like how a judge interprets the law or how he sees the facts in a case. That's why you have an appeals court. Then you go to the next one. If you don't like that, then you go all the way to the Supreme Court. And then if you don't like that, tough luck. It is what it is. But that's how it works. You're not impeaching a lower court judge just because he ruled against you. You go to the appeals court and you prove that he was wrong. But the problem with the Trump administration is they do this, they go to the appeals court and they lose again. I told you in the last episode, this is something that Brian Tyler Cohen brings up a lot with Glenn Kirshner and Mark Elias on his show, that this DOJ is losing 96% of its cases. Pam Bondi is losing 96% of the DOJ's court cases. So lawsuits that they're going for, that they're filing, or lawsuits filed against them, they're losing. But in this case, it's the cases that they're pursuing mostly. Glenn Kirshner, ex-federal prosecutor with over 30 years of experience, now he has his own channel. You can go and find, search for Glenn Kirshner. He has a podcast called Justice Matters, a great podcast. And then he's also with Brian Tyler Cohen on a series called The Legal Breakdown on Brian Tyler Cohen's English channel. We covered that series in Spanish too when we translate and dub these episodes. But Glenn will say consistently that before Pam Bondi, normally the success rate, the percentage for the DOJ was around 98% winning. They had a winning percentage of around 98%. So that means that at least 9.8 out of every 10 cases that the DOJ would pursue, they would win before Trump. Why? Because they cared about winning. They care about making sure that they had facts. They care about not making a fool out of themselves in front of the country. Because there wasn't a mindset. They didn't have a mindset of, oh, let's just win in the court of public opinion. Let's just do it to just torture, Trump's opponents. Let's just do it for revenge. Let's just do it because we can, regardless of what the result is going to be. They took cases that they knew they were going to win. Actually, Glenn Kirshner says that was very good in a way, because, it gave them that reputation of, we don't lose cases. So whenever the Department of Justice used to charge you, you knew you were fucked pretty much, right? But then Glenn Kirshner, kind of like flips the coin and says, this is the other side to this. The other side is that at the same time, the Department of Justice back, in the day then, around that time, before Pam Bondi, they would also reject cases because it wasn't that clear if they could win or not. And they were cases that had merit. They were cases that they should have, taken and fought, but they didn't, just because they were so concerned with winning that they would just reject cases that would benefit, the country and the people, which is what they are supposed to do. The Department of Justice is supposed to be there for the people, primarily, not for the government. Even though they're an agency of the executive, they're not Trump's, law firm. But that's how apparently Pam Bondi is viewing this whole thing. So look at the difference. They used to win 98% of the cases. Now they're losing 96% of the cases. Wow. But anyway, this probe is fundamentally about whether the executive branch, any executive branch, can simply choose to ignore a legitimate judicial decree. This investigation is a fight for the separation of powers and the very foundation of the rule of law. If they can get away with this, just challenging the courts, mocking the courts, telling, like Emil Bove wanted lawyers to tell the courts, just fuck you, they can get away with anything. If they get away with this now, with this criminal contempt of court, they're going to get away with anything. So this isn't about political disagreement. This is about what Judge Boasberg is calling willful disregard of judicial authority. It's a challenge to the idea that no person is above the law. So kind of wrapping this whole thing up, accountability, guys, accountability is coming finally. This is a developing story still, and the administration has until December 5. It's the 3rd today. December 3rd. So they have 2 days so far until December 5th to submit their initial declarations to Judge Boasberg. And Judge Boasberg has already found probable cause for criminal contempt. So we'll see now once they submit these declarations. Boy, these people should be, I can imagine these people should be, having these pretty intense meetings, right? Can you imagine them? Bro, what are you saying on your declaration? What should I say on mine? What was the story? I have to make sure I get this right. Man, oh shit. These people should be fucking, shitting in their pants right now. Okay, another thing. Unfortunately, Donald Trump may tell these people, don't worry, these are federal charges. If anything, I'm going to give you a pardon. I'm going to pardon you. And I'm pretty sure Donald Trump would. If any fucking official from DHS, from the DOJ, breaks the law, Donald Trump is going to pardon them, because that has been the theme. That has been the pattern since day one of this second administration, Trump 2.0. It has been whoever had my back, whoever pushed the narrative of the big lie, whoever broke the law, whoever did whatever they had to do, regardless of how criminal it could have been, whoever donated millions, whoever donated crypto, whoever, did whatever they had to do, I have your back right now. He's doing exactly that. People who donated millions of dollars are right now leading agencies, or they have really high positions in Trump's cabinet. They have an ambassador position. They have some sort of high-level position in Trump's administration. So people who donated, people who helped, people who lied, people who broke the law, people who attacked police officers, people who even have donated to his crypto personal business, his son's business, like the Binance founder, CC, that guy who got rich by allowing, terrorism and human trafficking, and even child trafficking and child sexual exploitation money to be transferred. Like he allowed money laundering so that these crimes could take place because he was making money, CC. And Donald Trump just pardoned that motherfucker. And then when they questioned him, he was like, they pressed him at I don't know, I don't know if it was the Oval Office. It could have been. It was one of these meetings, probably. I don't know if it was with some world leaders or what, but it was one of these very long tables, a bunch of people. And they asked him about the guy, and he's like, oh, I don't know who he is. They just told me he's a great guy. A lot of people told me he's a great guy, great guy. But I don't know him. I don't know him personally. I don't know nothing about him. But many people said he was a fine person, very good person, and that the Biden administration was very unfair to him. And so, I wanted to make a lot of people happy. A lot of people said he was great, so I ended up pardoning him. And even what he did, he said this. They say that even what he did wasn't even that bad. Yeah, just money laundering, allowing terrorist organizations, drug money, infant fucking sexual exploitation money to be laundered and transferred so that all these crimes could take place. Yeah, that wasn't that bad. Funding, allowing terrorism human trafficking, child human trafficking, sexual exploitation, infant sexual exploitation to be financed through the money that he knew was flowing on his app. It's not even bad at all. Of course it's not, If you are an insurrectionist, of course that's going to seem like a walk in the park, right? That's nothing. That's nothing compared to what I've done. I'm the real criminal here. So yeah, okay, I guess now I get it. My bad, guys. My bad. I think I understand Donald Trump now. I think I get it, where he's coming from when he says, they even said it wasn't what he did wasn't even that bad, of course, because this guy is a sexual abuser. He is, he defamed Agent Carroll. He is an aggressor. He is a fraudster. He is, tax. He has committed tax evasion. Tax evader? Should I say tax evader? Yeah, tax evader. This guy has faced criminal tax crimes. He was. They found him liable, guilty. The Trump organization back in 2023. A lot of people don't know about this because this was more the business, and it kind of dies with the news cycle so quickly, and people forget. The Trump administration in 2023 was found liable, guilty. In this case, guilty because it was criminal tax evasion, 14 or 15 counts. So, and then on top of that, he's an insurrectionist declared, ruled by two courts in Colorado that he is an insurrectionist. Twice impeached for extorting Ukraine, for the actual insurrection too. He was accused criminally in Georgia, even though they recently dismissed the case. There's a lot of politics going into that. But he's also, we know he's a target in Arizona and Wisconsin and Michigan, that battleground states that have had the same cases under investigation for all these, state violations. Fraudster when it came to Trump University. He stole money from Trump's charity, money that was donated for kids with cancer and even veterans. And he was using that money for his personal, pleasure, and entertainment, buying paintings and using it for his personal business and even for his political campaign. So, of course, now I get it. When he says, yeah, they told me, they said that even what he was doing wasn't even that bad. Of course, when you try to overthrow the government in the greatest and most powerful country in the world, that the crime by Sisi, the Binance founder, may seem to you just like just like something a kid would do. Yeah, it's just kid stuff, just something stupid that we could just overlook. Not important. Let's just pardon this guy. This guy is a real patriot. This guy's a real great human being. Oh my God. Anyway, they have until December 5th to submit their initial declarations. And Judge Boasberg already has found probable cause for criminal contempt. He's been trying to get them to purge their contempt by taking custody of the deported migrants, which they've struggled to do, compounding the initial violation. They keep making it worse. But now he is moving past the political maneuvering and directly toward establishing individual criminal liability. So, DHS, Kristi, Noem, Pam Bondi, the walls are closing in. Who is it? The Jonas? I think it's the Jonas. Maybe one of the Jonas brothers that has a song that goes, "Help me, help me." It's like the walls are closing in. I think he says something like that. So the walls are closing in. Accountability, something this administration has long evaded, now seems to be walking through the door, just right through the door. So maybe there was a little crack and Judge Boasberg, just came and sliding right in immediately. So now seems to be walking through the door. It's accountability. Wearing a judge's robe, Judge Boasberg's robe right now. So accountability has a robe, it has a name. So is this going somewhere? I really don't know, guys. We will be following this case closely. I promise I'm going to continue covering this case and other, breaking stories for you guys. But the integrity of our judicial system is literally right now, hanging in the balance. So I don't think they're afraid to be honest with you, I believe that these people feel empowered. They feel emboldened. They feel invincible right now just because they have Trump, and Trump has presidential immunity thanks to the Supreme Court of the United States that made that out of whole cloth, out of nowhere. They came up with this fantastic ruling of presidential immunity. Now Donald Trump feels that he's fucking invincible. And these people feel that they can do whatever they want to. We can get a pardon. Now these people are even arguing that Donald Trump's pardon should even cover state crimes. That's the new one that they're going for. I remember Mark Elias talking about that recently on the Brian Tyler Cohen show, that they're trying to argue right now. They want the Supreme Court to get involved in this, take up this case, so that they can rule on if a federal, pardon by the president can also now cover state crimes. Why? Because they have this lady, I forgot her name. Remember, they arrested this Trump supporter, MAGA radical supporter in Colorado. Now she's in prison. And that they want to save her. They're trying to save all these MAGA people that somehow, of course, did something on behalf of Donald Trump and broke the law. And now that lady is, already, she's already in jail. They want to find a way to save her. But the problem is that those are state crimes. And a federal pardon will never cover a state crime. But under this new, worldview and era that we're living in, where the Constitution is whatever the Supreme Court wants it to be. Because that they are reversing 50, 70, 100, even more than 100 years precedents so that they can please Donald Trump. They did it with Roe v. Wade. They've done it with a bunch of other, things, the rulings right now, like the Chevron, decision. Go and check that one and go. They've done it right now with rulings that they had that, would prevent the president from firing protected employees. Even now, the power of the purse, for the first time, they allowed Donald Trump to freeze, a president to freeze some funds and, to keep them for a while temporarily. But still, it's I don't know, case by case, you can see a lot of ways in which this Supreme Court is just trying to please Donald Trump and ruling 100% politically, in a partisan way. So I wouldn't even trust that we're safe when it comes to state laws and state crimes, because they may claim at some point that, we have the supremacy clause, which means that any state law that is in conflict with a federal law, then the federal law will prevail always because of the supremacy clause. The same thing with the Constitution. If there's any federal law that is, kind of like in opposition, in conflict with the Constitution, then the Constitution goes over the federal law. So it's the Constitution, federal law, then state law. So they can claim the same way they did in a very, incredible, unbelievable fashion, the same way they said that, a president needs presidential immunity, which is not in the Constitution. There's no precedents, nothing in the courts, nothing in the history when it comes to legal theory or whatever, nothing. They still made that out of whole cloth. They could come up with some fantastic take saying that, presidential whatever power and pardon should be able to save somebody that somehow was helping him, even though the charge was a state charge. He was the crime was related to some federal thing, and come up with some bullshit like that. And once they rule that way, now the federal pardon is going to cover state crimes. And what are states going to do? Just, leave the union? I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what to expect anymore. I just know that we just need to keep reaching people with facts and with truth, combating disinformation, misinformation. That's why, I'm starting to build this channel now. I've had this channel for a while. I really wasn't very into it for many reasons. I've been 10 years now here in the States. I'm from Puerto Rico, of course, if you haven't noticed. I'm from Puerto Rico. I was born here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I left when I was like probably 4 years of age. went back to Puerto Rico with my family, and I lived there until I was probably around 36 years old. Now I've been here for around 9 years. Of course, I got here, I was doing other things. And now I have been for the past 3 to 4 years very, very engaged with politics, helping Brian with his show. Doing Brian's podcast was great because I've always been into politics, but working directly with Brian daily, we're doing 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes, translating from English, all the interviews, Mark Elias interviews, Glenn Kirshner interviews. So I was like literally 100% immersed in Donald Trump's judicial shit show, all the legal cases and all the criminal accusations and the civil accusations and all the updates in the courts, and then the fight from both sides. So that really gave me a very broad perspective of everything that's going on. And eventually I launched my own podcast in Spanish around 2 years ago. And even though I had this channel from many years prior to that, it wasn't even a podcast channel. I had it more as, as a personal channel, and I would do some music related stuff and just, unimportant stuff. And I decided to just, turn it into my English podcast, since I already had kind of like a good following to begin with. And now I'm starting to do more consistent episodes for you guys. So the only thing that's going to help us is, as independent media, is always going to be if you can watch, if you can subscribe. So if you got this, made it this far in this episode and you like the content, please, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It's free. It's always going to be free. And right now, we have to support as much as we can. We have to support independent media, guys. We know that traditional media is falling short. Many of them are settling lawsuits with Trump outside of court. They don't care. They don't want to have, they don't want any beef with this administration. They don't want, this guy who was it Lutnick? The guy who was in charge of the FCC, whoever was that was at the FCC. They don't want, Trump threatening taking away their licenses or whatever. So we know that we're going to hear some stuff. They're always going to cover some stuff. But the main problem is they're trying to both side, the issue. They want to look so fair and balanced that then they end up pretty much falling into the trap of covering a ton of bullshit and things that they know are, blatant lies and manipulations. And then they don't want to press a lot, because if they press with the hard questions, they know they're going to be accused of, you're just pushing an agenda. You're not being fair. You're not. I remember George W. Bush one time saying, it was at the press correspondence dinner. He was saying, it's so unfair. Like the media doesn't edit the things that I say, because, George Bush, he would say so many things that were just wrong. He would just mess up a lot talking and just say stupid stuff sometimes. And he's like, why are you so unfair with me? Why wouldn't you edit it to make me sound better than I actually sound when I'm saying all these things, or when I mess up and I make mistakes, right? So that was kind of funny, but that's exactly what Donald Trump is expecting the media to do. So traditional media is really not serving us well. So all I'm saying is, if you enjoy watching independent media, please support us. And not only me, support any channel that you see that they're doing a good job. It really takes time. It takes time to do a good show. Of course, I've gotten to a point where I feel very comfortable. I have a really good, home studio, and I have a lot of gear. Just to give you a little bit of background, I used to do journalism back in Puerto Rico. I used to have my own regional monthly newspaper. I was a consultant for more than 10 regional newspapers. I even was a consultant and a provider for national newspapers in Puerto Rico for, content creation and social media, digital publishing, because I'm also a web developer, database developer. I'm a content creator, but I'm also a professional photographer, graphic designer. I've shared like many different hats. Aside from doing journalism, I've always done a lot of things related to business, marketing, advertising. So all these things right now serve me, because I have a lot of different experiences that allow me to do this type of work for you guys, and I really enjoy it. So I'm planning on doing more. But the thing is that I'm a little bit short on time, because my main business really takes some time. I also devote a lot of time to Brian's show to help with the production for Spanish, and then I do my Spanish podcast, which is also quite consistent, and that my channel is doing good in Spanish. I already made it to, in around a year and a half, been able to build it up to around like 43,000 followers right now, and it's going good. It keeps growing, so I'm really happy about that. And I do like a show like every other day. Sometimes if I can, I do it daily. And then once I finish all those things, throughout the day, I'm like, let me see if I can do an English episode for my English channel. And here I am, so it's quite sacrifice, because sometimes I have to do it like late. Once I finish, it's like 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Today I actually started early because I had to start my day very early. So I'm like, let me get this one out of the way very early, so that way I can, just go about my day and do the rest of the stuff. And at least I leave this contempt of court, contempt of court, no more games, baby, episode up, and see how many more people I can reach. Episodes are slowly, starting to reach more people. And this is how it goes with YouTube. You have to just trust the process. Sometimes you'll upload an episode when you're starting out and you get 50 views, 100 views, 200 views. But some of the episodes already are making it to 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 views. So I'm happy about that. Others are 500, 1,000. And it's getting to a point where slowly the algorithm is starting to move the content a little bit more for you guys to find it. So that's the goal. At the end of the day, the main thing here is that more people hear about these things and deeper, at least analysis or maybe more facts that more often than not, especially all the people listening to the right-wing media ecosystem, they will rarely hear many of these things. So anyway, that's that. My name is Daniel Aranzamendi. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode, okay? Take care, and I'll see you soon.